Welcome to the penultimate Fortnite Reload Elite Series Heat Finals. We got 3 more spots up in the LAN finals for grabs today, but who is going to be taking them? I'm Frankie Ward. I am joined by the fabulous Mini Miner and Reese Hub. You were so good in the Reload Elite Series earlier this year, Reese. We had to bring you back. I hope it wasn't too hard to get hold of you.
No, very, very easy as always. My inbox is always open. Don't give me a ring.
Okay, great. Well, there you go. Chat, everyone watching right now, Reese is open to offers. Mini Miner, how about you? Not open to offers, but how are you feeling about tonight's show?
Feeling great, yeah. It's my first show here on the Reload Elite Series, so I'm really, really excited for it. Excited for the competition. Of course, we've already had 2 of these finals, so we're going to get a different winner this time as well, which is going to be great to see. Lots of change. Of course, we're going to go through all of them. New maps, so much has changed. So really excited to see how things go down tonight.
Yeah, Heats 1 and 2 were on the Slurp Rush map, but we're going to be on the small and mighty Elite Stronghold map today. And I can't wait to see what the players are going to be doing on this map. 5 POIs. There's going to be, well, less Slurp because there's not going to be a troc on every corner. There's more loot chests, though, and more launch pads, Reese.
Yes, absolutely. I've got roughly around 44% more loot. There's been a bunch of changes since the map actually was released, so there's way more loot on it now. And looking at the drop map and seeing how teams are already split around this already, it seems like there's not that many teams contested. So because there's actually so many chests, I'm not sure what the off-spawn action is going to look like. In some of the earlier rounds, saw quite a lot of fighting, but of course, this is a finals where people care a little bit more about all the money and the prize and money that's in here. So.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you mentioned it right there as well, Frankie. 5 POIs down from 8 in the Slurp Rush map. So it kind of changes a lot of those dynamics. There's a few of those sort of underground areas as well, which I really like. Of course, you get those teleporters as well. So much more loot for teams to get. So I think it makes those sort of split drops a lot more viable. I think that's why we see a lot less of those contest stations. And even on those contest stations, are they even going to fight on the map? We'll have to wait and see later on. Unlikely, I think, based on how things are going. So from what we've seen so far, it's a really exciting map. It's very endgame focused and really, really exciting to watch.
Can we call taking the teleporters, taking the tube?
Hello. How are you?
We could try, I suppose. We could try.
It's a very London reference. Maybe one day we'll get a Reload Elite Series final in London. Guys, I'm manifesting. But speaking about mobility then, Mini Miner, what kind of items are going to be seeing our duos through to the end game?
Well, we're seeing a lot of teams doing this in the end game, Reese. It's using the combination, the Flowberry Fizz, the Overdrive Grenade, and then, of course, those launch pads that you can actually carry in your inventory. So it's a lot of investment in terms of inventory slots, but then this is what you can do in the end game. You can fly up way above everyone else and then skip a lot of that end game to then not have to get looked at by height as well. So it allows them to save so many more materials, and even using the bush as well, Reese.
Yeah, absolutely. If you do that strat, you can basically go 327 meters up into the sky, which is slightly above render distance, actually. And as you mentioned, we got the clip here from Dexy doing this with the bush means that if you actually get shot, then you're going to miss that first damage. So you're actually not going to take any. They're an item that spawns throughout the map, and most people are just grabbing them and throwing them on. So this strat, very interesting because, again, you can skip a moving zone or 2. But very interesting, I looked through all of the teams who were remaining this, and not a single one of them actually qualified through to the finals. So I want to see if teams are still going to be actually trying to do that in this or not.
But Reese, it's a set lobby tonight, right? That can make all the difference.
Absolutely it is, yes. Of course, we have, a very set 20 teams in. So you're going to have sometimes, right, a team might say, let's do this in the heats where it won't work there. And you'll see teams that will just learn that strat. And now that you've actually got the time to VOD review, they might try and implement it here.
Well, let's take a look at some stats for the weapons. See if that's changed since our last heat. And if you take a look at the top, the iron pump shotgun, I have to say, Reese, I'm surprised to see that is the dominant weapon being used in these fights.
Of course. Look, a lot of people will be looking at the cube rifle, I know, but let's be real, it's still a fighting a W key meta, right? It's reload, you get into a lot of action, you get into a lot of fights, so I don't think it's that surprising to see iron pump and pump shotgun way still up at the top, but there might be something else for the cube rifle later.
Yeah, the cube rifle is one of those where it's not necessarily about the player damage. I think a lot of people are looking at the play or the cube rifle gameplay. You're looking at it. You're not looking at it as a player versus player item. I think the structure damage is, of course, really where things sort of come into play with that. And particularly in endgame, we're seeing so many teams using it. Yet it's not at the very top of the structure damage stats from previous heats as well. So it's like, how is that going to sort of change things? I suppose the reason for it, Reese, is the fact that the cube rifle is just really, really difficult to get. So although it's not the weapon, the item that's doing the most structure damage, I think the fact that it's third, despite the fact that it's now been nerfed in terms of its drop rate, is still so strong and so impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, looking through the heat, I think there was somewhere between 3 to 6 per every single lobby, right? So that meant that you had some duos who had 2 who were carrying them. Sometimes you just have 1 every now and then, you know. Reason, no, really. You know, I was watching through some of the qualifiers. Yeah, they got kind of lucky on the RNGs when it came to cube rifle spawns. It allowed them to set up and play height and do stuff like this.
Yeah, and when you get one of these cube rifles now, you just have to make the most of it, because look at what it can do, especially if you're on height like Reason is here, spraying on down, using those cubes to then, of course, do so much structure damage. It was actually nerfed a little bit lately as well, but it's still just so strong, and I think that sort of changes the way you play your game. If you're able to get one of these cube rifles, not only are you able to play so well from height reads, it's also a great tool to actually take height as well. You can, of course, shoot it up at the team that's already up there, and then go ahead and take it, so definitely look out for some of those players using this item today.
We don't just have the cube rifle in play, though. There's some mythics and exotics on this map that are super fun to play with, but are they big game changers for the players tonight, Miniminer?
Well, I think they can be, and I think this is what I really like about Reload and what this sort of format brings, is the fact that you do have to think on your feet a little bit. You have to be adaptable, and you also have to sort of know a lot about the game. You can come up with sort of any of these sort of exotic and mythic weapons that maybe you haven't seen for a few seasons, a few chapters even as well, where you're like, oh, what does this actually do? So having that knowledge base of knowing, okay, this is a weapon that's going to allow us to go over high, this is a weapon that maybe we need to play a little bit more low ground, or even in some cases, this is a weapon that can actually change our entire game. It's going to be really valuable. So look out for teams that are actually, of course, using these items and see how good they have in terms of games.
Absolutely, and like looking through the heat, I saw it was Vico, I think, had the Lola stink rifle, which just shoots stink grenades over and over and over again. I think he got 10 eliminations with it in one of the end games, which was unbelievable. So, you know, if you manage to get the good RNG, the good luck in Reload, like, you definitely have to be able to make the most of it.
Well, we've got 20 duos in the lobby tonight. We'll be talking about some that we have our eyes on in a moment, but let's check in with our casters, Taco and Takata, to see who they're expecting big things from.
I'm going to be shameless about it, Frankie. I want to see Akira and Karama make it through to the EWC LAN qualification, and it starts in today's competition. These guys are moving with a lot of momentum, Takata. I mean, first place finish in yesterday's Div Cup finals, and not to mention that during their actual heats, they had 3 different victory royales throughout those 8 matches. So that's a very good course to kind of set forward with if they're able to bring that here today.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Akira Kurama, and they have not been disappointing recently, even in the second chance, qualifying themselves in first place to the Major 1 Summit LAN. Like you mentioned, Taco, yesterday, first place Div Cup finals. I mean, it seems that all that's left for this duo is getting top 3 today and qualifying themselves to the EWC LAN.
Yeah, and it might be a little bit more complicated just knowing that there is going to be, I think, a lot stricter for the leaderboard just because we only had 2 teams that are already qualified. But first and foremost, we got to get back and see what the Des has to say for everything else.
Well, I'm going to say, Taco, if you want to wear the Gentlemates jersey, you're going to have to speak some French to get those fans on side. So we'll have a conversation in the green room after tonight's show. But let's take a look at our lobby list and see some more of the duos who are going to be competing for the top prize tonight, because there's money on the line, not just qualification for that LAN final, because Sky and Scroll, they've already qualified. They are playing tonight. They seem unstoppable right now, Reese Hub, and they're the ones to beat tonight, it seems.
Absolutely. You know, any tournament these guys are in right now, I'm just like, I guess they're just winning. Fine, I guess Sky and Scroll are going to be first. They're going to be my prediction. They won FNCS. They won 2 division cups. You know, they didn't manage to win any of these qualifiers outside of their heat. Obviously, they absolutely dominated there, with Scroll getting 42 eliminations by himself. The second highest, by the way, being Darm, who had 34. So 8 more than second. So these guys are looking absolutely primed up in the mode.
Yeah, they're the talk of the town at the moment, really, in EU. They're the team that everyone's looking at as the best team in the region. Of course, they won the major finals, grand finals recently as well. And I'm really intrigued to see what they actually end up doing today. They're contesting Thomas HD. We spoke about it a little bit earlier on, how that contestation is going to go, likely to be a bit of a split drop, see how things are going to play out for them, because, of course, there's so much space, there's so much loot there. But I think the thing that I'm going to be really intrigued at is how they're actually going to play here, because, of course, they qualified through in that very first week. They're already qualified for the LAN. So how are they going to change things up now that they can actually play a final? Because remember, they didn't make week 2 finals, so now they're in a finals lobby. They have the sort of the chains are off for them, if you like, so they can just sort of play their own game, and that's going to be a really exciting thing to watch today.
Yeah, because I feel like that's why we didn't see them last time, Mini Minor, was because they were so focused on qualifying for the Major 1 Summit. And they're also the Major 1 champions, so it was time well spent. So we'll see lots from these guys tonight, I am sure. And we're going to see, as you've mentioned, them dropping Elite Armory, where Focus and Thomas are also dropping. This is a duo we haven't seen make a Heat Finals of the Fortnite Reload Elite Series so far. And yet these are fighters. We're expecting them to do well, Mini.
Yeah, we are. I think they placed 6th and 7th in their heats previously. They've just been so close to qualifying through into these finals. I think the narrative for this team so far this season has just been sort of the fact that they are two very individual players. They didn't necessarily have that, especially going into the major finals, have that cohesion, that ability to play together as a team like a Sky and Scroll. But so far, recently, the performances have been excellent. They came 2nd in the Div Cup last night as well, so they're on form at the moment. And it just seems like everything is coming together for them at the right time, because we know how good these guys can be individually. It's whether they can do it now across the course of the 8 games and qualify through.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you just said there. My analysis has been very similar, just saying that they've been two very solo individual players. But, you know, looking through how they played, coming through into, like, the major finals from FNCS, like, I agree, that's, I think, the best I've seen them ever play. And now that this is the first time we're about to see them here in the Reload, I'm expecting big things. They're basically one of, you know, we've EU's basically got, like, 4 big teams who are at the top of every single leaderboard right now, and these are the only one of those who has not qualified through. So, you know, first finals for them, I'm expecting big things.
Come on. Come on. You can have it your way. You can have it your way. You gon' back that thing up on it.
This is the first official broadcast we've seen them on this year, Rizab.
Are you trying to say there's a bias here towards Danish teams? I would never make a suggestion like that.
I would
No,
never.
the reason we're talking about them is because we've never talked about them before. I was doing my research, I was looking through, I was like, who's this team who's just won their heat? Dominated their heat, I would actually say.
Yeah.
And they've never qualified to Division Cup finals. They've not made an FNCS finals. They've not even made a heat in the Reload until then. And now they've just come through in their final heat here, and they've just dominated, winning through. So this is now their first time actually making a set lobby in, well, outside of the heat, of course, in this entire year. So I'm very interested to see how they're going to play coming to this finals, and if they're a kind of one-hit wonder or not.
I absolutely love a story like this, because you just don't know what you're going to get. There's such a big question mark around these guys, not even just not making a finals here, but not making a finals in anything. So it's like, what are we going to expect? How are they going to play it out? They're landing at the sort of northwest side of the map. On the map at the moment, they are down as contested, but there is a lot of loot in that area. There's sort of a lot of underground areas. They seem to just kind of find their loot and scrap loot around that area, which a lot of teams can do now. I think the main concern for them today is going to be Cami and Hari, just towards the southeast of them. On top of that hill, a little bit of elevation, they could cause them a few problems, because we know what Cami can do in these sort of set lobby situations. So interested to see how that sort of area of the map does sort of transpire today. We'll have to keep an eye out for that. But in terms of skill, in terms of ability, they seem to just be playing perfect Fortnite right now. Can they translate it into a final, though? That's the big question.
But let's bring up the lobby list one more time. Before we talk about last year, I actually want to draw your attention to the fact that there is so many experienced names in the lobby tonight. We are going to have a fantastic night of Fortnite. But let's talk about Pablo and Chino, because this is a duo already qualified for the August LAN finals. They are so consistent. We're expecting them to make all of the end games Mini Minor, and they really are contenders for the top spot tonight.
Yeah, fantastic team. And I think now, I mean, bar Sharkantini, I suppose the best team in this format. They got 3rd and 4th in their first 2 finals here. Now, of course, qualifying to this finals without Sharkantini in the lobby. Going to be so valuable, because I think you want to be known as the best Reload team going into the LAN. You want to be known as that team that everyone's scared of. So if they can put in a big performance today, it's going to be absolutely huge. And I think this sort of format, Reese, I think it really suits their playstyle. They're very aggressive. They find a lot of eliminations. They're always in that sort of top 3 in terms of eliminations, in terms of teams. So really excited to see what they can do today. Again, another team that we're expecting